All right, this is Chapter 5, Lesson 4, the distributive property. So, the expressions 2 times the quantity x plus 2 and 2x plus 4 are blank, blank. In those blanks, you're going to write equivalent expressions. So the expressions 2 times the quantity x plus 2 and 2x plus 4 are equivalent expressions. So no matter what x is, these expressions have the same value. So I can substitute any value that I want for either of these x's and I'll get the same thing. So let's say that x is 1. 1 plus 2 gives me 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 1 gives me 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. Okay, so I get the same expression. All right, so we can use the distributive property to actually evaluate our expression. So kind of like what I did where I substituted in the 1 for the x value, you're doing the same thing. I can use the distributive property to evaluate 8 times the quantity negative 9 plus 4. So instead of doing what's inside the parentheses first and doing negative 9 plus 4, which I would get negative 5, and then my answer, I'm going to actually multiply, use the distributive property, and multiply to each one of these. So I'm taking the 8 and I'm multiplying it by negative 9, and I'm taking the 8 and I'm multiplying it by 4. So 8 times negative 9 gives me negative 72, and 8 times 4 gives me 32. Negative 72 plus 32 equals negative 40. Okay. When you get really good at distributive property, it's really useful when you're dealing with variables. Not as useful when you're dealing with just numbers, just so you're getting used to the idea you can actually see that they do give you the same answer. I can also use the distributive property to rewrite the expression 1/3 times the quantity x minus 6. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that 1/3 and I'm distributing it to each value. So I'm distributing it to the x and to the 6. Okay? Make sure your sign stays the same. Okay, 1/3 times x gives me 1/3 x. And 1/3 times 6, 1/3 times 6 gives me 2, because 6 times 1 is 6, divided by 3 gives me 2. The last example I have is Mr. Ito needs to buy batting helmets for the baseball team. The helmets he plans to buy are $19.95 each. Find the total cost if Mr. Ito needs to buy 9 batting helmets for the team. So, in order to solve this, instead of just multiplying 9 times $19.95, if you don't have a calculator, we can actually rename this by saying $19.95 is $20 minus 5 cents. Then I can use the distributive property to find the total cost mentally. So that means without a calculator, no calculator is needed. Okay? 9 times 20 gives me 180, because 9 times 2 is 18, add the 0. 9 times 5 cents gives me 45 cents. 9 times 5 is 45. And I subtract. 180 minus 45 cents gives me $179.55. So the total cost of the helmets is $179.55. All right, there are 3 try-it problems on the other side of the page. I want you to go ahead, pause the video, try them out, and when you're done, we'll go over the answers together. All right, now that you've had a chance to try out the try-it problems, let's go over the answers together. So the first one I have says use the distributive property to evaluate 5 times negative 9 plus 11. So I'm going to use my distributive property. 5 times negative 9 gives me negative 45. 5 times 11, remember keep your sign, gives me 55. So negative 45 plus 55 is positive 10. Negative plus a positive, you subtract them. 55 minus 45 gives you 10. 55 is bigger and it's positive, so my answer is positive. All right, my second one says use the distributive property to rewrite the expression m plus 3n. Use the distributive property to rewrite the expression m plus 3n times 8. Notice that my 8 is on the right side of my parentheses. It doesn't really matter if it's on the left or the right. Okay, you're going to do the same exact thing. Whatever's on the outside, right on the outside of the parentheses, you're distributing to the inside. Okay? So I'm going to take 8 and distribute it to the m n to 3n. 8 times m gives me 8m. 8 times 3 gives me 24, and then the n tags along. Okay. When you're dealing with variables and you have two different variables, it's usually customary to write them in alphabetical order. So in this case, mn. Okay. You can write it as 24n plus 8m, but it's usually done where it's variables in alphabetical order. Okay. When you're dealing with exponents, you'll actually write them in exponential order. All right. All right, a sports club rents dirt bikes for $37.50 each. Find the total cost for the club to rent 20 bikes. Justify your answer by using the distributive property. So like we did with the baseball helmets, we're going to do the same type of thing with the dirt bikes. So $37.50, I can actually break down to 37 and 50. So $37.50 equals 37 plus 50 cents. Okay? And I'm multiplying this by 20. So 20 times 37 plus 50 cents. Okay? Now I'm going to distribute 20 times 37 and 20 times 50. Okay, 20 times 37, so I'm just doubling it and adding a 0. So 37 and 37, 7 and 7 gives you 14. I carry the 1. That's $674. So $740 because there's 20. Okay, so $740 plus, all right, so 22 times 5 gives me 10. Okay. I have this 0 here and this 0 here, so I have 2 zeros, so it's $10. Okay? $740 plus $10 gives me $750. And that is the end of Chapter 5, Lesson 4.